I am not very good at actually making sure I watch tutorials on a regular basis and keep up with things and see updates when they happen. So for ages after track alternatives were introduced into Logic Pro, I just kept dismissing them as something that's it's irrelevant. I'm sure it has nothing to do with me. I don't really care about this track alternatives thing. I didn't bother looking into it. I should have sooner, because it turns out it was actually a really useful thing that I was missing out on. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, then welcome to the chaos. I do all things music related on here, from audio engineering style content to production and songwriting challenges to just talking about music and musician life. Today, we're looking at a feature in Logic. Now, this is not a tutorial video of a how-to guide or anything like that. I don't do that kind of content. If you want how-to guides, there are plenty of people out there doing that kind of content who are way more qualified to be doing it than I am. So this isn't a tutorial video, it's just talking about a feature that exists in Logic that until recently, I wasn't using at all, and it dismissed as something that I'm probably not interested in that, really, probably irrelevant to anything I'm trying to do. I dismissed it as a useless feature, which was silly of me because now it's one of my favorite features and I've been using it a lot more, and I'm trying to get into the habit of using it a lot more. And that is track alternatives. A lot of people describe track alternatives as like Logic's version of playlists, which if you use Pro Tools, you'll know that Pro Tools uses this thing called playlists for organizing the individual audio regions that you can record onto a track and putting them into alternative takes and stuff like that, and then using that for comping and all this. And then Logic also has take folders, which is their main way of organizing takes. And there are definitely similarities between the Pro Tools playlists and Logic's track alternatives. I'm not really going to cover that much in this video because I'm going to do a video at some point soon where I'm going to compare comping multiple tracks in Logic versus Pro Tools, because I am familiar enough with Pro Tools that I can do some things in it, but that's not about what this video is about. This video is just about track alternatives. And I just want to talk about what track alternatives are, how I have been using them, how I want to try and get in the habit of using them in other ways. So before we get on, what the hell am I talking about? What are track alternatives? Maybe you haven't discovered these in Logic like I hadn't, in which case allow me to introduce you to your new favorite thing. I can show you track alternatives by actually showing you on this project, which is one of the things I've been working on in the studio this week. I have been recording a whole load of new stuff of my own on my guitar tracks here. And that's what these two little arrows here are actually for. This is the track alternatives drop down menu thing. If I click in here, I can show you. If I click on that, all those tracks all of a sudden look really different, don't they? And that's because that is a track alternative. They're very aptly named. They are alternative versions of your individual tracks, right? What that actually means is they are alternative versions of what exists in this editing region of Logic, right? It doesn't really apply to anything going on your channel strip. It doesn't apply to things like sends. It doesn't apply to input and any plugins and all that. So just to demonstrate, if I were on this track version, right, to pop an EQ on here, we're not going to put anything on that EQ, we're just going to put it on here, right? And if I then go back to that other track alternative, you can see the EQ is still there. So that doesn't change from track alternative to track alternative. Any plugins put on the channel remain on the channel for different track alternatives. And say I were to duplicate this track alternative now, so I can create a new one, I can go in here and click duplicate, or I can use the key command of all the keys down here, Control, Option, Command, and then D. Create a new track alternative, which they've called C, as you can see. So if I were to now just delete this randomly, and I then go back to that other track alternative we already had, comp, that hasn't been changed. If I go to dude, and if I go back to that A one, that hasn't been changed. That's what it's there for. It's for you to be able to have alternate versions, essentially, with different things that have happened to the specific editing. The way it works is that you go in and you can, I actually haven't done this on this project, so I'm just going to do it now. I just literally create, because you can just create a track alternative without needing to have this activated on the track header components, but if you want it there on the track header components so you can see it on all of the tracks, not just the ones where I actually have a track alternative activated on them, then you just go into your track header components and click track alternatives, and now you can see them on all of them. You don't have to create a duplicate track alternative if you want to create a new one. As you can see, you can also just create a new by either clicking create new in here, or by, as we already showed, all three of those, Control, Set, Option, Command, but this time N. Then within here, if you want to see all of your track alternatives, show inactive down here, or was the key command then just Option, Control, Option A? You can see I haven't used that one as much yet, so I've not got that key command memorized. And so now we can see our different track alternatives, and you can actually click on these, on this little power button here. It activates this, turns it into the active one so you can listen to it. Then you can click it back off and it will default back to the other one. And if you want to move that up to be the top one that is now the active one, you just click that arrow. Just gonna put that back as it was. Track alternatives are not there to replace take folders. As you can see, we still have take folders in here. Oh, can I not? Do I have to make that active to be able to do this? Do I have to even put it up here to be able to do this? I do. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I've discovered that now. If you've got a take folder, you can't just open it in an active one. You've got to make it the active one. But yeah, as you can see, we do still have take folders. This take folder still does exist here within these track alternatives. Track alternatives are in addition to take folders rather than a replacement for them, and they offer different options basically for editing. I'm just going to create like a dummy track to do this demonstration on, and I'm going to do it with a software instrument rather than an audio track. So I could just have a region here that is just, I'm just going to put the headphones on so I can hear what's going on and play something somewhat. I'm going to mute a few things as well so I don't spoil this track, because I don't want to spoil this track yet. That doesn't fit with the track at all. But if I were to then create a track alternative by just going new, so I just hit the key command for a new track alternative, then the control option command N, right? Can then record in something completely different. Cool. And then I open up, I get it to show the track alternatives, the inactive ones. You can see we have these two down here. And then if I want to pop one of these onto the active line, I can just split it up as you normally would if you were editing stuff. Pop that up there and say I then want this bit of this bit. Pop that up there. So you can see that is very similar to Pro Tools playlisting. If you were comping with playlists in Pro Tools, if you know how that works, you'll really recognize that that looks very similar to that. With the only exception being, I would say that whilst you can like solo and listen to these in the same way, if you were to just select this, for example, and then hit that, it doesn't like send up just your selection. It sends up the whole thing. That wouldn't work like that. So obviously in Pro Tools, you just make the selection, and when you click this, it will send up just the thing you've selected. You can also not send it up without getting it off of these, but you would just be doing it the same way you normally would if you wanted to copy something to a different track in Logic, where you would hold down Option as you drag the thing, and then you get a duplicate of it rather than moving it. I'm just going to delete this now because I no longer need this, and I don't want that on the project when I come back to actually work on this because it'll annoy me. So that's just a bit of an overview of track alternatives and how they work. There are plenty of other videos out there of people going over that where you can get it in more detail and get it better explained. I was just sort of rushing through there to just explain roughly what track alternatives are and how they work and what the different features are that you can use within them. But what I wanted to talk about more was the ways that I've actually been using track alternatives, where I find them useful, where I'm going to try and use them more because I think they will improve my workflow using them, where I would still default more to take folders, where I might default to playlists instead, where I will use a combo of the two. So first of all, let's talk about the main way that I've really been using them. So the main way I've been using track alternatives is in combination with the take folders. So I'll just open this back up again so you can see this track alternative here on my acoustic guitar tracks, and that is to change how I go about comping and then committing to that comp without getting rid of the comp and all the original takes in the take folder. You eventually reach a stage where having the take folder becomes quite annoying because take folders can only really be edited in certain ways. So for instance, a lot of the time if you're working, like I haven't done it on this one, I've done the guitar the whole way through to the end, but I'm pretty sure we did do it with the drums. So I'm just going to show you the drums quickly because I recorded these drums with James a couple of days ago, and the track alternative that we've got here, this is a temporary comp because I haven't actually comped the drums yet. A is just everything we recorded, and you can see there's a massive blank space here. That is going to be exactly the same drum-wise as pre-chorus 1 and chorus 1. We didn't do any variation on the drums in that section. So there was no point recording this section of drums exactly as it was here again. Would have wasted time in the studio. once these are comped, I will want to bounce this down to become one audio file here instead of a take folder. Why will I want to do that? Because copying and pasting a take folder is a nightmare, because you're not actually copying one audio file, you're copying every single audio file in that section of the take folder. And when you then go to try and like shore up exactly where your start and end points are for where you want this section to that has been pasted over to actually start and end, and then add fades, you can't add a crossfade across two take folder things like that. So when you're doing that kind of editing where you're copying and pasting sections, or alternatively, a lot of the time what you might want to do is you might want to have a fade out on a lot of audio files at the end of your track so that everything fades out and ends at the same point. You can't do that with take folder either because you can't add a fade here. Once I've comped these drums, much like I did with my acoustic guitar here, I want to bounce them down. And what I used to do was I used to go bounce in place, new track, because I wanted to keep the take folder still, because it's a nightmare to create a new take folder from all of those audio files that you've already recorded in. Like when you record in on Logic, it creates take folders automatically, right? I had to do nothing for it to create this, it just created it automatically. Every time I started a new recording, it would just put a new take in the take folder. But if you want to come back and put all of these audio files back into a take folder so that you can recomp something, that would be a nightmare because you've got to find all of those audio files and import them in and put them into a take folder yourself. I don't want to have to be doing that when I've already got these take folders here. I just have to not delete them. And obviously when you bounce in place, you can go to a new track or you can replace track. If you replace track, then it just puts that audio file onto this track as was, but that means the take folder would be gone in this circumstance. So I would just go to a new track so I could keep the old track, and then I would just deactivate the old track and hide it. Because I can create a track alternative, and I'll just show you me doing what I did to get this one. Once I've comped everything I want to comp on here, I can create a duplicate of that, and then I can bounce in place as I would, and instead of new track I can click replace track, boom, and then when I go back to my comp, it's still my comp. Now, I just want to show you something that happened there, because this is relevant to the fact that I have these grouped and how I work with these, right? Because you could see there that only that one bounced in place, the others didn't. So I have these grouped, and then within groups, oh, actually I'm supposed to deselect these. Let me just do that. I always deselect all of the ones that are automatically selected because for some reason it thinks I want to group them based on automation mode, volume, and mute. I don't think I've ever actually really used groups for that as much as I have for editing. And so I also click track alternatives. And that's why when I create a track alternative on these, when I go new, it creates a new one on all of them. When I do a duplicate, it creates a duplicate on all of them. See? They all have that duplicate, which I'm just going to undo because now I've got massive numbers of duplicates. The one thing it won't do is it doesn't do bounce in place. If I just have one track selected and I bounce that in place, it won't do it on all of them. But you can group and you can put in the settings track alternatives for your groups so that when you create one track alternative on one of them, you don't have to have them all selected to do it. It will create a track alternative on all of them at the same time. That's the main way that I've been using track alternatives. Quite often what I'll want to do when I've comp vocals, I tend to comp, then tune. You know, I stick Melodyne on it straight away. In some ways, bouncing to a new track there worked better because obviously if I do track alternatives, if I've got Melodyne on this and then I create a track alternative that still has the Melodyne on, and then for that track alternative I bounce in place, replace track, and I don't bypass effects plugins because you can bypass the effects plugins so that they remain. If I don't do that, so it just would put the Melodyne directly onto that. If I go back to the other track alternative, obviously the Melodyne isn't there. So there's no way to use track alternatives to keep a version of the Melodyne with the tuning that you'd previously done for if you just want to come back and fix something that you actually didn't quite fix right in the tuning. I'm not bothered enough about keeping that because it's really easy if I've noticed that there's a section actually I didn't get the tuning quite right on, I missed something that was actually a little bit out of tune and I want to fix that, I can just scan that one section into Melodyne and then rebake it in again, right? In future, I'm thinking that I will also use track alternatives in a way that a lot of other people have talked about using them in videos, as a way to explore ideas instead of going for actual takes that you want to comp into a final thing. Because the great thing about take folders is if you've got like the thing that you're actually doing down and you just want to get a good comp of it, it does all of the adding crossfades and stuff where one audio file stops and another starts for you. It basically streamlines a lot of the comping process in a way that is really quite convenient. But that can get a little bit annoying when you're playing with more ideas. So I've got this violin guide here, right? I'm just going to show you how many takes are in this folder, because this is me writing a violin part on violin and recording in those ideas as I go. So eventually I reach a point where I've actually written a part for a significant amount, and then I have to play it in again until I've actually got the part sounding like the part is meant to. We've gone over 200. There are over 200 takes in that take folder. Maybe track alternatives would have been a good thing to use there, so that I could organize my thoughts into like have a track alternative where I'm just messing around and playing with things. Once I've got the part and I know what I'm actually trying to do, make a new track alternative, do a bunch of takes until I've got what I actually want well enough in a few takes that I can comp that together into something that actually plays the part that I want it to play. Then go back to that other track alternative, keep playing around with the next section, so that once I've got all the ideas down and I've got that version, that track alternative with much fewer takes in it, right, in its take folders, that is going to be the one that I actually comp together, I can delete the one that was just me messing around and figuring out ideas. In the past, I have been playing around with different ideas on a software instrument track, and say I'm doing that with an instrument that is on something like Contact. Oh, you know how much CPU those use and how much memory they take up? Using track alternatives means you don't end up with that. So if I'd done a track alternative, for instance, for say this one, if I create a new one and come up with a new idea for that part, and then create a new one, come up with a new idea, then I can cycle back and forth between those part ideas. Whereas what I would do before is I would just duplicate the thing and then try a new thing, and then duplicate the thing again and try a new thing. And obviously that would take up massive. Now obviously I can come back and delete that later, but it would just be so much easier just to use track alternatives for that. If the thing you're testing out is different ideas for parts, a lot of the time, though, I'm duplicating tracks like that because I'm trying to try out different instruments and sounds and see how they sound in the project as well. So obviously it can't be used for that, because you can't really have a track alternative with a different instrument on it. You change the instrument on this track, it's going to change it for all the track alternatives. But if you're just messing around with part ideas, track alternatives are a great way to do that. And a great way to then more easily be able to combine ideas. There is an example of that on my friend Lexi's project that I worked on. I did a whole video unpacking. I think I covered this in one of those songs. We were bouncing back and forth between two very different drum ideas, and I just basically created a whole new track with different drum ideas. And I'd done that, I think, twice. I think I had 3 tracks total of just different drum ideas. So what I should have just done is use track alternatives there. But I wasn't using track alternatives back then because I was poo-pooing them, and it would have been so much easier to then toggle back and forth and to then comp those together, because then I could have created a new track alternative to comp them together, because we had ideas from one part and ideas from another part that we actually decided to put together in the end. So those are a couple of ways that I'm going to use them more in future. I think the only time I wouldn't use them is actually this violin example I gave here. I'm using it here, might have been a good idea there, but for instance, say I was writing an electric guitar part, that sort of thing probably doesn't take me quite as long as a violin part. I'm not anywhere near as good at violin. If I were throwing ideas around just for myself on one of my projects, what I'm more likely to do is just keep using take folders for that. Because obviously, if I want to create a track alternative, I actually have to go and do a key command thing to actually do that. Whereas a new take folder gets created automatically for me the second I hit record again. So I can just loop a section and just have it recording over and over again and play with ideas, right? And that's probably how I will continue to work when I'm throwing down ideas like that completely solo. When I'm in the studio with someone else though, I'm 100% using track alternatives for that. If I know that the person wants to try out a different set of ideas, I'm going to duplicate and create a track alternative and not just have 1001 different take folders of different ideas. And then once we've settled on an idea, we can just go in and just keep adding takes to the take folder of that one idea on that one track alternative. Anywho, that is all I really wanted to say on the matter. I'm probably going to do other videos sort of on this subject in future. I mean, as I said, I'm going to do a whole video comparing Pro Tools and Logic for comping multiple tracks, specifically drums in. But I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover in terms of using track alternatives in this video. But do feel free to share any other ways that you've used them in the comments, any other tips, any other pieces of information you think I've missed here. If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy the content on my channel in general, in which case you might want to hit that subscribe button. But I know that that's a big decision to make. You wouldn't want to subscribe and unsubscribe, so do feel free to check out some of the other content on this channel before you do so. There'll be something recommended on the end screen for you. If you want to follow me on all the various socials, they're linked in the description below, and there's also links down there to where you can find my artist profiles and stuff, because I release original music. You'll be hearing some of it on the end screen. If you want to hear what this project that I've mildly teased here sounds like when it's ready to actually come out, then you're going to want to follow me on all of those. They're linked below as well. There's also a link down there to my Buy Me a Coffee for if you want to support me with money. You can send one-off donations on there if you just want to say cool video mate, but you can also subscribe to one of my memberships if you want to get access to extra behind-the-scenesy kinds of stuff for a monthly fee. That's all for this video, guys. I shall see you guys next time with another fun music-related video of some sort.